All right, welcome to part 6 of our continuing discussion of the visual system. This time we're talking about the ventral stream. Okay, we're going to talk through a couple of different functions that are supported by the ventral stream. The first of which is color perception. So neurons within those CO blobs that we talked about respond to colors. Like the ganglion cells in the retina, these neurons respond in an opponent fashion. So that same sort of opponent process is preserved at this level. This information is then analyzed by various regions of association cortex that constitute our ventral stream. So color is going to be a thread throughout what we're talking about. One thing that our visual association cortex lets us do is perceive color constancy. We perceive familiar concepts as having a constant color, even if changing illumination alters the wavelengths that are reflected by that object. So you can see here, we have a cube. It looks like it's a yellow cube with blue dots on the side. So we will sort of look at this and expect that this is going to be uniform on all sides. And the yellow being bright on top must mean that it's being lit from the top. There's not as much light on this side, and it's pretty dark on this side. So the cube is yellow, and the differences in illumination are making it look a little bit different, right? We're receiving different wavelengths on our retina, but we're perceiving them as the same color because it's lit differently. At the same time, we must then perceive the blue as being different, right? This blue looks pretty bright because it is on this dark side here. So if it's looking the same, that must be pretty bright. And this is probably a normal color. So basically, the system allows us to compensate for the lighting in a scene by sort of quickly looking at it and determining the average color of the scene, and then sort of subtracting out light as necessary to perceive a uniform color. This lets us see all three sides as being yellow because we are compensating for the shading, right? It's dark here, so we see this as just a darker shadowed side. It's all yellow. But this also causes us to interpret these three same color blue dots as being different colors, right? If this yellow is dark because it is in a shaded part of the scene, then this blue must be bright because it appears to be the same color, right? That's color constancy. If I take these three dots and pull them out, you might be surprised to see that they are in fact the same shade of blue. But we perceive this as being a brighter shade of blue because it would make sense for it to be because it's in darkness, right? If you had a cube that was painted yellow and blue and put it into the dark, then this blue should appear darker. That's just how things work in the world. We do this so quickly and so automatically, and it's accurate most of the time. We very rarely notice a misstep of our color constancy correction processes until we do. So if you all remember this ambiguous dress from a few years ago, everyone saw it as being different colors, and it caused quite a stir. Like, what color is the dress? Everyone talked about it for a little bit. And the answer to the ambiguity is color constancy, right? Top-down color constancy. If you see the reason that it looks like this is because it's such a perfectly ambiguous scene. We have a dress that's inside, but behind it is a window that is brightly lit. So if your brain sees this as a dress being lit by bluish outdoor light, then you'll subtract out the blue and see a white dress. But if you perceive this as being dimly illuminated by a yellow light, you'll subtract out the yellow and see blue. So right here, if we see a black dress with yellow light versus a white dress with a bluish shadow, it's all about what we subtract out of the image. So for me personally, I default to seeing this as a white dress with gold trim. But if I think about it as being lit differently, if I think about being inside, being lit by a sort of pale yellow light, I can sort of flip my perception and see it as a black dress. It's hard to do, but you can do it if you try. If you're wondering if there's an objectively true answer, it is in fact a blue dress, which is weird, but I love when this sort of came out, everybody was talking about it, and I got to be very smug and be like, it's color constancy, let me explain that. Nobody actually cared, but that is the answer. It's color constancy. It's all about how we perceive the scene and what sort of corrections we make based on that perception. So let's talk a bit more about color perception. V4, so visual association cortex area 4, responds to many wavelengths of light and plays a role in the perception of color. It helps us with color constancy, that concept we just talked about, where colors of the object appear to be the same even when the lighting differs. And remember, lighting differing matters, right? Because the physical thing that we're perceiving is wavelength of light. So this is a really cool thing, right? The light changes what we perceive the color as being the same. That's color constancy. So using fMRI as a method, color hotspots were identified and were termed globs and interglobs. So from recording around these areas, we were able to determine that globs are sensitive to color, but not to shape. Interglobs are sensitive to shape, but not to color. So also another region that's contributing to our color vision is area V8. This is a region in our inferior temporal lobe that's sensitive to color. Damage here causes problems with color vision. Damage here can cause a disorder called achromatopsia, which is an inability to discriminate among different hues. Interestingly enough, V8 is activated by photos of real objects, but not objects of unnatural colors. So V8 would respond to stimulus A here, but not to stimulus B. Because of this, it appears that V8 is involved with sensory memories of color memory as well. So knowing that not only are these strawberries, but that the strawberries should be red and not blue is all thanks to the activity of V8. So our visual association cortex in the ventral stream also allows us to perceive form. This is the recognition of visual patterns and identification of particular objects, so we can put together things like edges and colors and figure in ground and determine what we're looking at. This is thanks to the inferior temporal cortex located in the ventral part of the temporal lobe. This region, the inferior temporal cortex, constitutes the end of the ventral stream. End in quotation marks because, of course, that neural activity is going to be passed on and processed by other areas in our brain, but this is the end of the exclusively visual processing. Analyses here of form and color are put together, and perceptions of three-dimensional objects and backgrounds are achieved. So activity in this region is really important for us doing complicated stuff like sorting out figure from ground, like knowing that this water bottle held in front of me is not part of my computer screen, but is in fact a separate object. All takes place here. Damage in this region causes severe deficits in visual discrimination and lots of trouble making sense of the visual. So there are some disorders of the visual system known as visual agnosias that result in deficits in perception in the absence of. So agnosia means without knowledge. It's a general term that can be applied to a lot of different disorders. But an agnosia in the visual system would mean that you still have vision, right? So you can detect the stimuli just fine. It's just a problem with perception. So this is often caused by localized brain damage. So one example of this is prosopagnosia. This is the inability to recognize people by their faces. So somebody with prosopagnosia could describe the physical appearance of a face but not identify somebody based on their face. This is caused by a particular region called the fusiform face area, or the FF. So someone with prosopagnosia would be unable to identify someone, even someone they know rather well, based on just their face. So they might not know their daughter or a famous person or even their own face. There are workarounds with this, right? People with prosopagnosia could perhaps recognize someone by a salient feature, like a mustache or very distinct looking glasses, but they cannot really assemble the features of a face to make a coherent identity out of that. Some more recent thinking on prosopagnosia and the FFA in general is that the FFA isn't just for faces, it's really just for intricate objects that the individual has expertise in. So it's important for people like know things a lot about cars, for example, and it can discriminate make and model and year of cars at a really high level. They would use the same region for that, or planes, or stamps, or anything that you might know a lot about. It's kind of a region of a brain that's important for visual expertise.